going over how to spot when someone is doing a bench press. First thing, before you even have somebody start, have that conversation so they know the process, so you guys are on the same page and they understand what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and most importantly, how you're going to do it so that they don't get hurt or you don't get hurt. The first thing we tend to want to do is set up in a place after that conversation where I have control over the bar in case my client is unable to re-rack that bar, but also from a place that is stable enough where they're not going to slam it back into me. Usually I'll put a foot on the actual part of the bench or one in front and I'm staggered, because then that way I have a better chance of leaning without an unsupported back position. I'll grab the bar in the middle. We've had a conversation that I'm going to have a lift off happen. Usually it's the client. The client is going to count down 3, 2, 1, and then we go. So we're going to go from there.
1, 2, 3.
Then I'm going to let go after it's stable. Client is going to go through their bench press move. You can cue, you can guide as needed. When the client starts to struggle, now this is where we are going to have our hands come one over the top, one underneath. So we are ready to guide with as little pressure as possible with fingertips, but obviously trying to let them guide through. You know how to coach through that, how to guide through that. If they go through one more and they're unable to finish, now I'm in a safe place. My knees are bent, my body is low, and I can actually start to lift, pull on up, and help pull back into the rack. All that should have been communicated before with how I was going to do that. But most importantly, what needs to be known is that if that weight starts to fail, you want the client to keep pushing, because if that is a lot of weight, you don't want that to come down on them or for you to have to lift the whole thing. And then that way you can literally just grab, use their strength and momentum, and I'm just going to thrust it back into this rack. Slamming it into the rig is absolutely fine because then it's safe to lower down onto the J-hooks.
Going over spotting a squat. There are 2 ways to do this. If you don't have a second coach with you, or you feel like it is a load that you can tolerate by you just doing it, the first way, or we'll go over the way with just you. So your client and you or whoever you're working with are going to have a conversation because it is a little bit more of an intimate spotting situation. You are going to be very close behind the person, and your arms will come up under their shoulders and rest on their shoulders, not on their chest, on their shoulders. So I will have that conversation with the client first. I will show them with my own hands where my hands are going to go, or I'll point where they're going to go. And then the conversation happens where I am very kindly going to ask them not to dump the bar back on me if I'm going to be spotting them, because then I will end up with whatever weight they have in a Zercher position, and I'm not ready for that. So Joseph and I will have the conversation. I'll tell him where my hands are going. I'll say, please don't dump the weight on me. If you start to fail, we are coming up together. So I just need you to push, and I will be the second person on the squat. So we will demonstrate that now. So Joseph will get under the bar. And then when he walks out and begins to get ready, I will come up here. My hands come under his armpits. If he fails, my hands will come up here, and then we'll come down with the squat. I am not giving him any assistance. If he goes to fail, I am here, and we lift up together and then step in to the rack. So I'm going to help him get up by placing my arms up under his armpits and driving up through my shoulders, elbows, and into his armpits to stand up. The second way, which Coach Shaylin will now come help us demonstrate. Everyone say hi to Coach Shaylin. Woohoo! Okay, so Joseph's going to unrack the bar. Our hands are going to make a little cup like this, or hands under, depending on the height. Joseph's going to squat, and we are going to come down with it. If he fails, we're going to ask him, he's going to push, he knows, we'll come under the bar, and then Shaylin and I, or whatever coach you are with, will rack the bar with them. So in all situations, the squatter is going to continue squatting unless they fall, which happens sometimes where they go to get up, something happens, they can't push, their leg gives out, anything. That's why Shaylin and I, or the coach and I, are here to push up. Sometimes there's 3 coaches, 1 behind, 2 on the sides. But we are responsible for the safety of the client in both of these positions. So the second spotter and myself are you have to be paying attention, because if that bar starts to move and one coach picks up and the other doesn't, you've now shifted the weight over. So you and your spotter need to have a conversation. You and your client need to have a conversation. So that bar needs to move in parallel up and into the rack every single time. I think that's about it for both of those. That's how you spot a squat.
How to spot landmine exercises. When you're using a landmine, first and foremost, if you can have a stand, makes it a much safer position for a client. Use a box if you need to. And then while it's there, we can get the client into the right position if they're doing a standing exercise. We can also then put ourselves in a much safer position, which means I can crouch low, grab the bar the same way I would kind of with a bench press, but I'm in a position where even if there's a lot of load on this bar, I can easily help and then guide it right back down to a stand as opposed to the floor, which is just going to be safer on my body, hence the reason for a stand. Now, if you're on the floor doing an exercise, it's a little bit different. So we've got Coach Ethan here, going to be doing some presses with the Landmine. What I like to do is then just stand right next to the bar on the opposite side that they are pressing. Main reason is this bar more than likely is going to travel towards me if he loses control, and I have giant hip, giant body here to be able to support and block this, and I'm in an offset stance so that I can be ready to be able to support. Again, as he's pressing, if he starts struggling, all I need to do is use a little bit of fingertips or guide with my body so that I can guide where this bar is going. If he really needs help, I can grab onto the bar and control down, or even give him a pull back on up, and we can guide directly over to the stand. Same thing is going to apply if Ethan's going to do a squat here. So if he's going to do a squat, he can go straight down, he can come straight back up. If he starts struggling, I can get down with him. I'm in a really stable position to just give him that little bit of leverage, pulling it back towards me, and if I need to fully grab, I absolutely can. The beautiful thing of the Landmine, and this should be talked about before, is he can just dump that thing, right? Typically a plate's going to be on there. As long as space is not an issue, throw a bumper on there, spares your floor, makes it nice and easy. That bar goes down. He's usually pretty safe. He may just need to kind of sit down to his butt and roll on out of it. Same thing if he's going to do an RDL here. So if he's doing an RDL, I'll even just take a knee because it's going to be usually a pretty easy position. I'm stable. He's going to be in a smart, stable position. And again, that thing can just go straight down to the floor. Let's do a half kneeling press, one of our last ones. Again, I like to go counter the side that he is on. So if he's pressing with his right arm, my right arm, and it's going to be basically a mirror matched image of where he is. So we almost would fit like puzzle pieces here. So it's opposite legs that are going to be matched. Then when he comes up, I can guide on through and all the way on down. If I need more leverage, I can be right here. I can support. And if it's just a wobble issue, I can literally just use my body as a blockade so that it goes in the right position and he's safe. Because oftentimes his body will want to lean and dump to that side. All right, Landmine, keep him safe.
We are going to go over spotting the dumbbell bench press. So first things first, we need to have a conversation with the client so they know what we're going to be doing. We're going to be putting hands on them, so they need to know that that is going to happen. The next thing is when they are finishing the rep, part of this conversation is they need to be giving as much force as possible, even when they feel like they fail it. That is what we are here for. Two things with that. You can either guide them up the whole way or instruct them that when they feel like they're failing, the dumbbells go back to their chest. So Joseph, go into the bottom position. The dumbbell goes back to this in position here instead of the open position. They'll come here and then each hand just goes down to the floor. The other way we can do it is if he's in this bottom position and he goes through a rep, I will typically take a knee behind them so that I'm in a much more stable position. He'll come down and I will start to cup my wrists, my hands around his wrists as he comes up. And he will press through. I'll let go. And then as he comes back down, my hands go back out to the wrists. He comes through. And then if he struggles, I will just start to grab his wrists and lift through. What we don't want to do if he comes into this bottom position, I don't want to put my hands on his elbows as he comes up. Because if I push in on his arm, this weight's coming backwards. It could hit him. It could hit me. So again, we want to keep our hands under the wrist. So if he, go all the way down. If he fails this, I can grab his wrist very firm and help guide him back all the way up to the top.